Thanks, Edie. Check, 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 check. What's up? Yo, how's it going, everybody? Yo, thank you so much for joining me. This is my second ever live stream I've ever done in my whole life. So we're here to celebrate the release of Album 4. We're Game Changer, which a lot of you have been listening to, which I love. Thank you so much for the support. Basically, we're just here to hang out, have a good time, answer any questions that any of you might have about the band, music, jazz, arranging, my life, my dog who's sleeping there on the couch. Literally anything. We have some special guests that could pop by. Maybe I could call some people if you have questions for them specifically. Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much an open book. I think the way this is going to work is drop your questions into the chat if you haven't been already, and our fabulous mod, Danielle, bravo to Danielle, will pin them for me and put them up on screen, and we'll have a good time and hang out and answer some questions. First and foremost, everybody can hear me, right? I think so. Great. Love that. Everybody, can you hear me over the background music? Loud and clear. All right, we love it. Okay, cool. That's great news. Great. I love that. Music is a little loud. Lowering it. How's that? Is that better? I just feel like we should have some background music for vibe, right? Okay, very cool. Great. Well, hey, listen, thank you so much for hanging out. I won't take too much of everyone's time, but yeah, like you said, anything you want to ask, feel free. I'm here. We're all here. Thank you so much again for joining us. And yeah, I hope to see some of you at the live shows coming up. If you're in the New York area, December 15th is right around the corner. We have 2 shows now because the 7:30 sold out. We added a 10 p.m. You should buy your tickets if you haven't. If you're in Boston, December 9th, I'll see you there. And if you're in Virginia, we're coming to Newport News on January, I want to say 5th, but I don't want to be wrong, but look that up, to Ferguson Center. That's in January. Yeah, there are going to be some great shows. We're going to play some new tunes, have all the special guests, from the album that we can get in the various locations, and we'll have a good time. So you know what? Why don't we just kick things off? And Danielle, why don't you throw your first and your favorite question on the screen, and away we go. Let's do this. On average, how long does each arrangement take? That's a very good question. And it's a little bit of a complicated answer because it really depends. Sometimes as an arranger, basically what we do as an arranger, is we hear the unrealized potential in a piece of music, right? That's our job. So we have this bag of tricks of all the music we've ever listened to in our life that swims around in our brain, and we hear a piece of music and go, you know what this piece of music needs? It needs this, it needs this. It would be great if we added this, if we added this. And so sometimes I just have an idea for an arrangement that clicks immediately, and I know exactly what it needs to be. And I sit down at my computer and it comes out, and I can knock it a whole big band arrangement out in like a few hours. For example, like Still Alive from Portal. I had the idea, and the idea was, what would it sound like if Frank Sinatra had played Portal? Done. Oh, I should use I've Got the World on the Strings. Should sound like Nelson Riddle. Boom. But then some arrangements, like the Tetris theme, for example, I sort of write out the melody, I put it away. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I come back to it a little later, like, it'd be cool. Maybe some Tchaikovsky. That's like Russian. It's a Russian folk song. Do another section, let it go for a little bit, come back to it. So it really doesn't, it really just depends. So on average, if I know immediately what it's going to be, it takes like maybe 4 or 5 hours. If I don't really know what it's going to be exactly, maybe it takes like, it just depends. Maybe a week, a couple weeks. It depends how much time I really spend sitting down to do it. And it takes a couple hours to prep the demo and prep all the files and the sheet music for recording. So, it's like maybe a day's work per song. That's a good question. If you're an arranger, I love answering questions about arranging. It's a very not a lot of people know exactly what it even really is to be an orchestrator or an arranger. But yeah, we hear the unrealized potential in a piece of music in a context. But great question. What else we got? What were your biggest challenges when first starting the band / when you first started band leading? Ooh, that's a very good question. And those are kind of 2 questions that are tangentially related, right? So the biggest challenges when starting with this band particularly, let's back up actually. The second part of your question is a little bit more relevant because I was the band leader of many other things before I did this band, which has been sort of the apex of my band leading ability. My very first public big band was, and is still kind of in a way, another big band called Charlie Rosen's Broadway Big Band. I exist mainly in the musical theater world doing Broadway shows, and so not unlike the 8-bit big band, I was taking songs from Broadway shows, putting together a big band, totally reimagining them, and we would perform them live at 54 Below, a club here in New York. It did not really exist on the internet or social media. It was purely a live show. But I did that for about 8 or 9 years, and that really served as like my laboratory to try out all these big band styles and arrangements and instrumentations, and practice first and foremost the art of conducting an ensemble and keeping it together, and then all the logistical challenges that come with being a band leader, booking the band, the venue, the sheet music, organizing files, sending them in a timely manner, good managerial skills like choosing musicians that not only sound good but work well together in a section, personalities. And so the biggest challenge of being a band leader, really, once you get the music down, it's really a managerial position, you know, and it's being a good people person and understanding the chemistry between musicians and what's going to work in the context that you're in. So it's something that you don't really learn in school. You just have to play a lot and pick out the things about people that you play under. Like, what do I like about working with this band leader? What do I not like about working with this band leader? What does this band leader do well? What does this band leader not do so well that causes stress? And you put that all together, and hopefully you learn stuff from it, and you get to exercise those things in your own band. So it's a thrill. There's nothing more thrilling than standing in front of a large group of musicians and just the sheer force of the moving air that comes at you, especially when it's your own arranging. It's thrilling. I hope that answered your question. How do you get ideas for songs? Great question. Sort of what I was talking about before. There's two ways, right? And the first way is if you're a working arranger, if you're a professional arranger, you have no choice. Somebody hires you to do something and you just must have that idea. You have a deadline, you have to do it. And so the key is, again, doing as much listening and absorbing his music as you could possibly do in your life, so that when you need to pull out references and ideas on the fly at a moment's notice, you know what's going to work. Oh, I know this trumpet part will work. I know this, in this genre of music, this is what the horns do. This is what the bass does. For my personal arranging for the 8-bit big band, it's more creative and there's no timeline, right? So it's just, I hear a piece of music in a game that I'm playing and I go, wow, something about that piece of music is really inspiring to me. I don't know what it is. It's little specific things. It's this melody that sounds like this artist, this groove that reminds me of this genre. And they swim around in your brain soup and you go, I want to honor this piece of music. It's really great. And then you either say, I'm going to take what that composer was going for and I'm going to run with it all the way in the direction that they intended. Or I'm going to take what they were going for and maybe come up with a brand new idea that maybe wasn't the purpose, but I believe that a good song at its core, at its building blocks, its melody, its chord changes, and its groove, if it's composed well, it can work in any genre, any setting. So then you can run with it in a totally opposite direction. So I get the ideas just from living my life and playing games and listening to music, really. Great question. What else we got? How'd you learn to play so many instruments? Lot of time, just time. And you know what I like to say about learning instruments is there's really only so many ways that we can generate sound, right? You either blow into something, it's a wind instrument that has keys that go up and down. It's a brass instrument where you buzz your lips, you strike something, you pick something, or you bow something. And once you learn, basically, like if you pick a string, right? You pick a string and you put your finger down and that changes the note, right? That covers so many instruments. And once you know the foundations of how an instrument works, it's really easy to convert that to like other instruments of the same style, right? So once you understand how to play the guitar, you understand basically how all fretted instruments work. So then it's just a matter of vocabulary on those instruments in the genres that they're used in. And that's just listening and absorbing. It's kind of like learning languages. Not that I'm much of a polyglot, but it's like when you learn Spanish and, you know, when you learn French, you learn a Romance language, right? You understand the basic grammatical foundation of other similar language families. It's kind of like that. And the rest is just time. And I try to take lessons. If I'm going to learn a new instrument, I think it's very important to take a lesson with somebody who really knows what they're doing to set you up for success. But great question. Anyone can do it. There's no secret. Anyone can do it. Oh, that's a great question. I love this. How did the Lawrence collab come about? Isn't that great? I'm so glad that that worked out. It was so cool. Essentially, I met the Lawrence family, the Lawrence extended family. How did I first meet them? Oh, you know what it was? Really funny story. Their trumpet player, Mark, I went to summer camp with him like years ago, like in 2006. And we played in like bands together at this summer camp called French Woods, you know, summer camp for the performing arts or whatever. And we played in bands and recorded together and stuff. And then I didn't see him for a really long time. And I happened to see him in Central Park playing with this band, Lawrence, that I didn't really know who they were at the time. This was maybe like 8 years ago. And I texted him like, oh man, yo, how's it going? I see you up there. And he said, oh, we should, you know, let's meet up at Central Park. And we did. And then I met the rest of them and we sort of became friends and started hanging out. And the Lawrence and their tenor sax player, who's a friend of mine named Jordan Cohen, they came to the very first 8-bit big band show ever, which was at Subculture, and now sadly closed venue here in New York. That was in 2018. and they had a great time. And I've just kept in touch with them, hung out with them. And then when I had this idea to do I Want to Take You for a Ride, which is a loop, from Marvel vs. Capcom 2, which is a great soundtrack. So probably people are thinking, why didn't you cover an actual song from that soundtrack? There's something about that loop, it's this Tower of Power thing, and I love Tower of Power. And I just found myself listening to that 8-second loop or 4-second loop for like an hour straight and not getting tired of it. And it made me think, like, what would the rest of this song sound like if it was a full song? If this was the chorus, that would be really fun. I'm not really much of a lyricist, but I know Lawrence is this very, funky, soulful horn band, and they write songs. It'd be cool if, like, Clyde, wrote the rest of this tune, and then I could produce it and orchestrate it. So I texted them about it, told them the context. It's this loop. It's like kind of a meme. It's really funny. I think it'd be cool if we did a whole song around it. And, they were down. And so they wrote the song. I went over to Clyde's place. He played it for me on the guitar, and he sang what he came up with. And then I took it and I arranged it for the band. And that's how it happened. It was really cool, really natural. It was a good time. That video is coming soon. It's currently being animated, so it'll be out soon. Great question. I love Lawrence. Everyone go check out Lawrence if you haven't. They're a great band. Yeah. Who makes up the overlaid animated graphics for these videos, and how do they come up with it? That's a great question that no one has really ever asked, but we sort of have a team of animators that has grown over the years to about, maybe like 6 or 7 people now. But every one of them, they don't do it together. They take a video and they do it individually, right? So I send a video to this one. I think they're the right vibe. This one. And it's by far the most labor intensive part of the whole process. We'll get into the studio and we'll knock out 4 tunes in one recording session, and they can be mixed and mastered and ready for release in about 2 weeks if we're done. The way the albums are made is over the course of a year or so. Every like 4 or 5 months we go in the studio and do a couple tunes, and then when we have an album we release the album. But animating is just such a time intensive and tedious process that's really by far the most difficult, I think, part of making the videos. And so, like, bravo to all those people who dedicate their time to do it. They're so talented. I could never do it. And the way they come up with the ideas is I just say, like, hey, are you familiar with this game? And they say yes. And I go, great. Whatever you want to do. I give them total autonomy. They run ideas by me. If I have any ideas, maybe I send it to them, but I just let them do their thing. They're great artists, and I trust that they're going to come up with something great. And they do. But yeah, shout out to all the animators. They really make it. What program do you use to arrange? Great question. There's a bunch of music notation softwares out there that various people use. I know a lot of people use MuseScore nowadays. Really cool, free, open source, and really powerful for being free as well. Cloud-based, that's really cool. I personally learned on the software Finale, and that's because, don't get me in trouble, but I downloaded a pirated version of it when I was 11. It was like Finale, 9 or something. Now we're on 25. But so I started learning on Finale when I was very young, and then eventually I bought it. And then at Berklee School of Music, they use Finale. And then in the Broadway theater scene, in musical theater, everything in America, in New York, is mostly in Finale. And so I'm very skilled at Finale. I have my shortcuts set up. I'm super fast. I know a lot of people love Sibelius, and that's very common. All of musical theater in London is in Sibelius. Jazz here in New York is in Sibelius. I hear it's very user-friendly and a lot more user-friendly than Finale, and easier. The learning curve is not as steep. I just personally have never used it, but a lot of people love it and a lot of people swear by it. I use Finale. And then if I'm making demos or mock-ups of things for the recording sessions or recording any additional tracks, which the keen-eared 8-bit big band fans will notice that there's very often things that are not seen in the video that are heard in the recordings. That's usually me recording in Logic Pro. I take the MIDI from Finale when I'm done with the arrangement, put it into Logic, put some extra percussion and synths and stuff on it, and then bounce those stems into Pro Tools. We take the Pro Tools sessions, we go to the recording studio, we make the album. So there you go. Do you start arrangements with a piano reduction or from the bass line or a melody? Wow, great question. Really great question. For those that may or may not know, piano reduction is generally all of the sort of things that would be going on in arrangement, but reduced to just be playable on the piano. And it's funny you ask that, because in the world of Broadway theater, which is my primary career, the way that you get delivered files to orchestrate them and arrange them is a piano reduction. right? They do rehearsals all on the piano, and then you get the piano. You talk about how many instruments are in the Broadway pit, and a copyist prepares for you a file that has all the staves that are blank, and at the bottom there's a sketch staff that is the piano reduction, and so you work from that, and that's how that happens. So I work like that all the time in my professional life. When it comes to the 8-bit big band, because I am starting from scratch and also doing the arranging and the orchestrating, there's not really a need for me to sketch out my ideas ahead of time. Some people do that, and that's great. But I can envision the whole sound of the arrangement in my head and then translate it directly into the orchestra parts. So I don't need to go through that step of sketching anything out ahead of time. The way I sort of sketch stuff out is like, I'll lay out my full score and go, okay, I want an intro, 16 bars, maybe A section, B, A, interlude, solo, shout, chorus. Like I'll do the big picture structural architecture of it, and then go, all right, I'm gonna put this drum groove, maybe I'll sketch the drum groove in here. Oh, I know I want the trumpet figure here to do this. The alto sax soli, I'll write the top voice of it. So it's more like putting in the big ideas into the big chart and then eventually voicing them and fleshing them out. But great question, really good question. What was your first composition? My first composition, I can't remember exactly what it is. I wonder if I can find this picture. Let's see if I can bring it up. I do have a picture of my first ever written composition. I think I know where to find it. Give me 5 seconds here. Let's see if you can actually understand what the hell is going on in it, because I certainly can't, but it was my first go of it. I think I was maybe 3. Oh yeah, here it is. Let me save this. I think I was maybe 3 or 4. Maybe somebody can read it. It's very avant-garde notation, very 21st century, super modern, interpretational, that kind of thing. Let me see here. Present. Okay, check this shit out. Maybe you guys can understand. What do you think? You think any of you can play that? Somebody should arrange that for big band for me and let me know, how it goes. Take your screen grab right now. Look at those clefs. There's some funny clefs. But hey, you know what? Do your best. There's my first composition for you. Enjoy that. Great question. What's your favorite Easter egg on the album art? Wow. Oh, that's awesome. Okay, first of all, I have to shout out there, as opposed to the animators, of which there is many, there is one singular person that does every single piece of album artwork, YouTube thumbnail, social media graphics, stickers, t-shirts, everything. This person does literally everything we have to do with graphic design. And his handle is Mike Kill Us. Mike, shout out to Mike in Brazil. Mike's hoping to move to the States. We want him to. That'd be awesome. And to help Mike do that, everybody should go hire him to design every single piece of graphic art they could ever need. Mike's an amazing artist in all sorts of styles. Shout out to them. But to answer your question, let me pull up this album artwork here and see if I can. Let me pick something out. That's a great question. It really is an incredible piece of artwork, isn't it? Man, look at all these Easter eggs. It's beautiful. I don't know. I sort of like the companion cube is obviously a good one. I had an Atari 2600 growing up, so I appreciate the Atari controller there. I guess I just mostly like that my ears are portals, and then in the orange portal it's the game music, and in the blue portal it's like a colorful explosion. It's really beautiful. It's great. I'm glad you asked, because I wanted to shout out our graphic designer anyway. Are you releasing any merch such as CDs or vinyls? I've played around with that a lot, and I guess I live in New York City, and I don't personally want to deal with the actual physical merchandise. Vinyls are big and they're heavy, and I'd have to bring them around to all the shows, and I already have to bring a suitcase full of merch and a suitcase full of gear and a suitcase full of sheet music. And maybe if the production of the 8-Bit Big Band's tours get a little bigger, I will do so. And I've thought about releasing vinyl a lot, and I think maybe I'll do it for album 4. So stay tuned. But it's something. It's just one thing on a list where there's plenty of other stuff to deal with in the band, and I'm sort of I'll get to it at some point. I promise. How are songs selected for an arrangement? Is it just whichever one there is an idea for, or is it some other way? Yeah, it's just whatever strikes my fancy, you know? And usually it's because I like the song that's playing right now is Beneath the Mask, right, from Persona 5. And I'm a little late to the game. I didn't play Persona 5 until fairly recently. And obviously I fell in love with the soundtrack. Soundtrack's awesome. And it just struck me to be like, yeah, I should cover this. And then it's me listening to the soundtrack going, oh, I got an idea for that. So again, it's just whatever jumps out and speaks to me. But I can't play every game in the history of gaming. And so I rely a lot on my friends and fans to recommend me soundtracks. There's a whole, if you're not in our Discord, you should join our Discord. There's links to it in our bio and social media and YouTube, and there's a whole channel there for song recommendations that for those who are in the Discord, I may not always respond to them as they're going by, but I do look at them. I definitely look at them and I listen, because there's a lot of game music out there and I can't possibly play all those games. So maybe your idea will get on album 5. Give it a shot. Who's your favorite non-jazz composer? Ooh, that's a great question. You know, I really like Tchaikovsky, if we're talking classical. We're talking theater, Sondheim. If we're talking rock and roll, Led Zeppelin. I don't know, that's a tough one. It's really general. Who's your favorite writer of music in every single other genre except for this one single one? It's tough to say. I like a lot of different kinds of music, so that's a tough one to choose. But yeah, you take those. Take those. Oh, favorite Sondheim? Oh, I just saw the brand new Sondheim show. That one's wild. But my favorite Sondheim is probably Sweeney Todd. I mean, that score is just so awesome and epic, and the tunic orchestrations are so good. So good. Anyway, go on. What else we got? When do you think quoting / referencing other songs in one's own work goes too far? Well, let me tell you, you're asking the wrong person. If anybody, as you all might know, I am a absolute shameless quoter. I think I think you could fill a spreadsheet with all of the just absolutely shameless quotes I have pulled into these arrangements. I have zero taste, and so I don't think it can go too far. You know what? It can go too far, and here's when it goes too far. And here's my ethos on quoting. I think the quotes have to be, I'm going to use a fancy word, dramaturgically justified in the arrangement. In the course of the storytelling and the drama of an arrangement, if the quote is on the journey of that genre, tangentially related, coming out of the same vocabulary you're utilizing, the same time period, the same instrumentation, the same emotional energy, some, connection to your idea, your dramaturgy, your storytelling, and your arrangement. Because the best arrangements, they tell stories, right? They may not be literal English stories, but I think that you can summarize the drama of a good arrangement in plain spoken words, in English words. Like, for example, I don't know, like Chrono Trigger. Like someone said, cough, cough, Spain. Oh, that was Danielle. That was the mod. Okay, yeah, that's a great example, though, because Chrono Trigger, at its source, the harmony was obviously sort of borrowed from this, like, 70s, era jazz fusion. And so that is the dramaturgy that I think allows the arrangement to take, in a justifiable way, quotes from Jaco Pastorius, quotes from, Chick Corea's Electric Band, because they're in the world already, so they make sense. So I think as long as you can justify why you're doing it in English or spoken language terms, then you have a reason to quote. There you go. That's pretty good. How have your expectations of the longevity of the 8-Bit Big Band project changed as you found an audience and gained recognition for your work? How do you want to approach the next level of this work? A very profound question. A very profound question. When I started doing the 8-Bit Big Band, I had zero expectations. I just wanted to do it because I grew up with this music. I love this music. I love large ensemble jazz. It's what I do. And I thought, why not? And I went into the studio and we recorded that first album for fun. I paid for it out of pocket. It was just a little passion project. I thought this will be a fun thing to do. I didn't even really realize there was such a vivacious scene for video game music at all. I was very out of touch. So I put the album out there and put the videos up on YouTube. and discovered this community of video game music lovers and of jazz lovers and video game music jazz and musicians that come to the art form through video game music in the way that I did without even fully realizing it, and so my expectations of the longevity have very much changed because I had none before. I had no idea, and now that we've really found this community I feel like I'm helping build up this community of musicians through the medium of video game music. And so now my expectations, still I have none specifically, but to just continue facilitating a scene for people that want to arrange and perform this music and helping them do so and listening and showing the uninitiated, so to speak, that these melodies from this canon of music from the great video game songbook, as I've been saying, are valid and can be reinterpreted and picked apart and arranged and taken to, as you said, the next level in the same way that we do that with the Great American Songbook, Broadway musical cast albums, film scores, et cetera, et cetera. It's a body of work that we can take to the next level musically by reinterpreting it. So great question. Before I answer this, I see this question going by a lot, and I just want to throw out there that as some of you may have noticed, there are a few tracks that I've been teasing that are not on album 4, such as Dolphin Shoals, Mario World Overworld theme, and Scientist Solarium. And so I just want to say that Dolphin Shoals is coming out on YouTube, but I could not get a license to put it on the album. That's all I'll say about that, but it will be on YouTube and it'll be fully available, but it didn't make its way onto album 4. And Mario World Overworld, it was the same thing. However, I wanted to maintain that style of arrangement. And so I did Mabe Village after that, which I could get a license for, in the exact same style and that Count Basie Lil Darlin style. So that's on the album. Scientist Solarium, people are asking about. I always wanted to release as a single because it's really its own thing, right? It's really, the humor of it is that we're playing the original orchestrations. It's classical. It's operetta. It's not big band, And so it doesn't really fit, once again, dramaturgically, on a big band album. So I always wanted that to be its own single. So that's all I'll say about that. I'm not really a qualified, expert on licensing, and so I don't really want to get into that on the live stream. But just so that is answered. Anyway, how do you decide on instrumentation / how do you balance existing instruments within different sections of a piece? Really, really great question. So instrumentation, first and foremost, I think is dictated by genre, right? Or, that's not necessarily true. Instrumentation, first and foremost, is dictated by both genre and also feeling and emotion, right? And so I think one trap that a lot of young arrangers can fall into when they're working with a large ensemble, such as the 8-bit big band, which is really not even a pure big band. It's more like a studio orchestra because it has a string section and harp, woodwinds, sometimes choir. Falling into the trap of writing everybody in the score all the time, when really balancing the instruments is all about oh wow, I just got an alert that unusual activity in the 8-bit big band Discord because a lot of people just joined at once. We can mods, we can mark that as resolved. Hey, thanks for coming by. The challenge of being a really great balancer and arranger of instruments is knowing what all the instruments' jobs are, what their available textures are, what their available sounds are in combination with other instruments, so that you can play with the parameters of your arrangement. By that I mean making sure that your arrangement has shape and form and journey by varying up the textures through the various parameters we have at our disposal, right? So that could be loud and soft, high notes and low notes, short notes and long notes, many instruments, one section, solo instrument, 2-note voicings, 5-note voicings, 3-note voicings, bass line only. It's about creating a journey of up and down so that when you do decide to have pedal to the metal, all of your instruments playing at once, like in Dolphin Shoals when every single person plays the lick, it's effective and it's like, whoa, because you play with the parameters so it doesn't get fatiguing. The great Don Sebesky is an arranger that I love. He says in his book, The Contemporary Arranger, he talks about how humans evolved the ability innately to detect what is important that they're listening to detect importance level, right? We evolved in the wilderness, and there's the background noise of the jungle, right? And that's not important. But you hear a tiger roar or you hear an animal cracking, that's important. And our brains go, that's important. I should listen to that. So really great arrangers use that innate ability of humans to balance their arrangement by making sure what is in the foreground, what's important to be listening to, is crystal clear. It's not covered. It's not, obfuscated by other instruments. And what's in the background supporting it is like having control over that importance level of listening in your arrangement is how you balance a really great arrangement. Really good question. Okay, here's a simple one. What's your favorite video game currently? Yes. I'm going to spend 30 minutes talking about this. No, I'm definitely not going to. There is a few though. What have I been playing recently? The game I was literally just playing right before I got onto this live stream is a game that I am like hopelessly addicted to called Monster Train, which is like a roguelike deck builder indie game that I absolutely love and has great music. In more of like the AAA world, I've been playing the new Mario game. I really got to finish the new Zelda. I'm trying to think what have I been playing recently? What else have I been playing? Oh, you know what? Me and my girlfriend, we just started playing Ni no Kuni, which we never played, which is really fun and great soundtrack, obviously, and the art style is beautiful. That's a cool game. The World Ends With You, I just got recommended. I've never played that. I just downloaded that. I'm gonna start playing that. You said simple, but I have a few answers. Anyway, now you know. Monster Train can last you forever. I see that in the chat. We're trying to 100% that game, and we're on like year 3 of doing so. It's so good. I love that game. How do you balance the online community and content with live performances? Something older jazz groups didn't have to manage. Really great question. And this is something I've really had to learn. I didn't have a lot of experience doing this until the 8-Bit Big Band. But what's cool about the 8-Bit Big Band is it's sort of approaching it backwards from the traditional band, your jazz ensemble, wherein like normally you start a big band and you try and play as live as much as you possibly can, and you take videos of that and you maybe put them online. And the purpose of it is to promote the live shows, right? Is to like, oh, look here, let's try and sell this show to venues. Whereas, the thing about the video game music community is it exists first and foremost online. It's not centralized in any one particular place. There's no one city that is a scene for video game music any more than any other city, except maybe, once a year when MagFest happens in Washington, D.C. and everybody descends on MagFest, but then we spread out again. Or maybe now slightly New York with the OSNYC Video Game Music Jam session that happens, but it's still very spread out. And so first and foremost, this is an online band. The community is online. And so the content is geared first and foremost to be enjoyable online. Then once we had some success, we started doing the live shows, which, is a challenge because it's very expensive and it's not a one-time fee. It's an ongoing fee. And so we basically use the money we make from streaming and ad revenue to do the live shows and pay the musicians for the live shows. It's just an ongoing thing that goes on over and over because we love to do it. And it's something I've learned a lot about. Ideally, I wouldn't have to think about the almighty algorithm, praise be to the algorithm, but we do. And I do my best to try and stay honest about what I'm posting about while still posting enough to please the algorithm. YouTube, bless you. Thank you so much. Anyway, that's something. I don't totally have an answer, but yeah, there's something to that. Hey, Charlie, I was wondering, will there be another community orchestra project? I've thought about it. I've thought about it a lot. The thing is out of everything we've done, that by far, by a magnitude of 100, was the most work I've ever put into one single piece of music. Editing 664 videos and audio files together is absolutely... I'm deciding if I was going to curse on the stream, but there's something about YouTube demonetizing cursing, so I guess I won't. It was a absolute insanely huge challenge, right? And we were all sitting at home doing nothing, and so it was like kind of okay, but I sadly don't know if I have the time really to dedicate to another 600-person orchestra. But, if there's enough of a momentous occasion, I might change my mind. So, stay tuned. How do you become an orchestrator? How long should you go to school for? Well, I guess in this situation, I think maybe you'd be referring to, a musical theater orchestrator, I'm gonna guess. If you hear this and you type in the chat to confirm that or not, I'm taking a look at it. But because it's funny, the word orchestrator is sort of only still used in, like, I'm gonna change the song. I'm tired of Tifa's thing. Is only still, even though I love Chloe Rowland's playing, but it's played like 5 times. I feel like the word orchestrator is only used in musical theater and film scoring now, and it's like pure sense where you're purely like writing out the score. And to become that, it's kind of like anything else. Okay, that's what I figured you meant. It's okay. Yeah, for theater. What I did, my journey was sort of like, I moved to New York, and I got into this theater world playing in pits when I was younger, and just meeting all of these young musical theater writers and just saying, like, what do you need from me? I'll do anything. You want horn arrangements? I'll do them for free. You want transcriptions? I'll do that. I'll do this. I'll do that. I'll do your string writing. I can write your rhythm section parts. You just have piano vocal music. Let me write a drum part for you. Just getting started on doing that, and eventually working my way up and up to larger and larger projects. And starting the Broadway big band was a big part of that. We had that gig, and I could bring people to it and say, like, look, this is a thing. I can do this, And so there isn't any really like direct pipeline from school to stage for orchestrators, sadly. So it's just sort of like getting your stuff out there and getting people to listen to it. And as far as how long should you go to school for, it's different for everybody. I loved going to Berkeley so much. I love Berkeley. I did not finish. I went for about a little less than 2 years because I was working. And so there's no right answer or wrong answer about how long. You could go to school and never, ever learn to orchestrate every style. There's styles that I get asked to do sometimes where I'm like, it's not really my thing. If you're looking for super contemporary pop or electronic music, that's often people ask for that. I'm like, I don't really do that. I didn't learn how to do that. Maybe if I had been in school longer, I would have done that. I didn't do that. So I don't really have a direct answer, but you can always be in school, so to speak, by listening and trying and writing and getting and playing it and getting feedback. And, every day's a school day, as they say. When dealing with the harmony of a tune, how much of it do you leave in the arrangement and how much do you reharm? In other words, how important is the original harmony to the soul of a piece? Really good question. Really good question. I think it depends on what you're doing with it, right? And so, like I was saying, every choice, every arranging choice, and in this case I'm saying arranging, talking about big picture architectural structural things of a tune, time signature, groove, form, sections, harmonizing the chord changes, that should be informed by your artistic reason. You should have a justification that you can talk about. And so if you are reimagining a piece of music in a style of music that calls for more advanced harmony or fits in the genre, that's when I think it is appropriate to choose your moments to reharmonize things in a way that make you go, oh, that's different. And it has a reason because it's justified by the genre you're choosing. But I think it's very important to balance that with the original harmony so you can make sure that you're honoring the intentions of the original, unless your goal is to say, you know what, throw it all out. We're starting from scratch. But there has to be a reason. There has to be a reason. Not all songs should be reharmonized within an inch of their life, I think. Unless there's a reason. Unless there's like a justification to it. That's what I think. This is a great question to tack onto this. What parts of an original piece do you consider sacred while arranging? Or rather, what parts do you take the most liberties with, and what parts do you prefer to leave mostly the same? You know what? I have something for you. Because I sort of answered that a little bit in the last question, I think I would like to bring in somebody else to answer that question. I was just texting with him earlier. I'm not sure if he's watching the chat. Oh, he's watching, yeah. I think this is another fantastic arranger. He arranged Last Surprise that I then orchestrated, on the album with Jonah Nilsson and Dirty Loops. And I actually personally would like to hear what he thinks. He's a great jazz musician, chiptune artist, everything. I mean, he's a complete bad mofo player. Like, he has chops to burn. His vocabulary is incredible. I asked him to arrange Last Surprise because he has a harmonic sense that I couldn't possibly hope to achieve. And so I'm going to see if I can get Jake Silverman, aka Button Masher, in on the chat and have him answer. Let me call him up right now. Let me text him. You want to jump in? Let's send him a link to this. In the meantime, let's you know what? Let me call him up. Oh, here he goes. Yes, I'm here. Click the link. Yo, Jake, so you gotta click that link and then you'll be on standby in the room and then I can bring you to the stage once I see that you're in here. Boop. While he's getting that sorted out. Oh, there he is. Wow. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, button masher.
Hey.
What's up? How's it going?
It's good. Things are good. I'm I had the YouTube open in a separate window, so I was hearing like a crazy echo. But now everything's sorted. Yeah.
I love that. Well, thanks for jumping in. You know.
Yeah, happy to.
I figured this is a good question for you that I also want to hear you answer. So, do your thing.
Okay. Yeah. What parts of an original piece do you? I think I would say the melody. And actually, I mean, this might be controversial, but in my opinion, the melody is the only sacred part. Because for most listeners and for most people who, you know, who experience video game music, like harmony is a way more difficult thing to recognize and to grasp than melody. I mean, because it's a melody is a single note, you know, it's like a line that you can sing. It's like something that it's like the most memorable part of a piece. And like, so yeah, I mean, if you want, like, if you change, like, changing the harmony is one thing, but if you change the melody too much, it might not be recognizable.
That's true.
You know, that's why, like, I take that, and like, if I'm doing a reharm, I'm basing the harmony off of what's going on in the melody, you know, and changing the melody to fit the harmony just doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, then there's nothing left of the original. If you change the chords and the melody and the groove.
Yeah, it's just too much. It's too. Yeah, totally. I mean, you guys probably, if any of you listen to my music or know my arrangements with Charlie, like, you know that I like to take a lot of liberties and like take the song to really crazy places. But you have to always consider the listener and like give them enough so that they can actually appreciate what you're doing to the song, you know?
Yeah, and you know what I love about your arranging particularly is that I think you do a really good job of balancing using really dense and complex harmony, but then every once in a while throwing in a sort of breath of fresh air chord that's not quite as dense and is just really beautiful. And it creates a really nice arc. So it's not just like a constant barrage of very complex polychords. You know what I mean? You do a very good job of balancing that.
Yeah, it's something I'm working on more. And, you know, I'm always... one thing I've been doing more is trying to, because like I feel like we all have habits as arrangers, and I'm trying to, like, when I arrange something, I'm trying to think more like other arrangers. Like I'll think like, oh well, how would Koji Kondo arrange this? Like, what if I was doing a Persona 5 piece in the style of Koji Kondo, and how it, and then you can start, like, you know, combining certain recognizable things that people like, and like doing, like, making all kind of doing interesting mixing and matching.
Yeah, that's pretty much all I do is do.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
What would this sound like if this person did it? That's pretty much my whole bag.
Yeah. No, I love that.
Yeah. Does anyone else have any questions for Jake while he's here? You just type a quick one in the chat if you have a question for Jake. How are you today?
Yeah. I can't see the chat, by the way.
Oh, so. I'll tell you. Cash Jostar asks, how are you today?
Oh, I'm quite well. I have some family visiting. I've gotten to spend some time with my niece.
I love that.
It's been great. Yeah.
I love that.
Doing good.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
And, you know, for just, you know, one thing I feel like I constantly want to just say out loud about me and Jake's collaboration on both Last Surprise and our Grammy Award-winning arrangement of Meta Knight's Revenge is that the process here is, like, Jake arranged the two. Like, it's interesting to talk about the distinction between arranging and orchestrating here. These two terms often overlap, and usually in the jazz world, when people say arranging, they're also referring to orchestrating. But we're talking about The differences here is that the arranging is the big picture architecture of a piece of music, chords, form, time signature, groove, vibe, feel. And the orchestrating is, what are these instruments going to do? Can I add background melodies over the course? How do I balance the sounds? What sounds are they going to make? What's going to play what, right? Jake absolutely arranged Last Surprise, and he arranged Mennonite's Revenge. He came up with all those chords, all those, all the form changes, all that stuff. I just tacked on a couple little things. Like I tacked on the intro to Mennonite's Revenge, just that intro part. Similarly with Last Surprise, I put the intro, and I think I put there was no solo section, so I put your solo section, or maybe it was, or I made it longer.
No, totally.
I can't remember.
But there's more than that, though. Like I think you did a lot more with both of those pieces than you give yourself credit for. Because the thing for me is like, I've kind of abandoned instrumental arranging in favor of like electronic music, and I mean I just simply don't, I don't have the experience that you have in terms of like preparing an arrangement for a group to read, for people to read, and like you have a really good understanding of what every instrument in the orchestra and the big band can play, and like how to like.
Well, what's cool about working with your material, because Jake delivered me originally the arrangement, and I think you posted there is an arrangement of your chiptune arrangement of Last Surprise that I based ours on.
Yeah.
But taking that material, and this is a similar challenge of taking, actual chiptune music that came out at the time from the 80s and 90s. The way that those are composed are never ever meant to be played on real instruments.
Right.
And you're boundless as far as how many notes you can arpeggiate per second, and you have to do that because you have so little channels to work with.
Exactly.
So the challenge becomes figuring out how to maintain the vibe while being able to execute those things on instruments, and a lot of times it's keys or violin or passing things around the saxes. So that's a really awesome and interesting challenge of specifically video game music orchestration.
Okay. Here's a great question. Do you arrange chiptune differently when you know that it will eventually be translated to a live big band? Okay, so in the case of Last Surprise in particular, my entire thought process for the arrangement, well, there were two things that I was thinking about. One, I had just gotten Super MIDI Pack, so I wanted to I figured I would just use this as an opportunity to start messing with that, since I knew I was going to be sending Charlie essentially a reduction of what would eventually be a big band and orchestra piece. But the main thing that I was thinking about is, how can I harmonize Last Surprise in a way that's gonna totally work with how Jonah Nilsson sings and his writing style and the writing style of Dirty Loops. So in that instance, I was mostly thinking about Jonah. I wasn't really, because I knew that Charlie would handle the big band stuff and the orchestra stuff and just make it work. So I mean, and when you're thinking of a singer, when you're arranging with a singer in mind, you're already going to be writing in a way that's going to translate well for a band, because a singer, it's a very it's you need to lay a foundation that's not going to be distracting, that's not going to take away from the vocalist. Singers are very,
I have a story about that.
Writing for singers is really hard work, because you have to be very sensitive about what you're writing, and the melody is key. You have to make sure the melody stands out, but also I was trying to really listen to Dirty Loops and try to channel that harmonic sense. And fortunately, I mean, the original version of Last Surprise is not very dense in terms of harmony. So there was tons of room there to explore new colors and textures and ideas. So
very, very true. I have my short story about arranging for singers is, one time I was working on a Broadway show and I was a young orchestrator, and I was given the chance to do a couple charts for this, and show, both the show and the composer will remain nameless. But I did some charts for this show, and I wrote, it was for a big band-esque thing, maybe 17 or 18 musicians. I brought it in. I was I'm really going to show off. I'm going to write all these lines, sax lines, horn hits, all this stuff. Brought it in. We read the chart down. There was no singers. It was just an orchestra rehearsal. They played it. Sounded great. It was, very intense. And the composer who wrote the songs turned to me and he said, "That sounded really great. but it sounds too good. It sounds finished. Like this song sounds finished and it's not finished. I said, what do you mean it's not finished? And he said, you see any singers here? There's no singers.
Oh,
You can't sound finished because there's no singers, so there's no melody.
Yeah.
And you're going to step all over my music and my lyrics, and no one's going to be able to hear anything I wrote. So you need to go home and do this again and leave some room for my lyrics. You know, and I'm like, oh, right. Okay. No problem. You know.
True.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's answer this little question here, and then I'll let you go. But if you could, if you could put a percentage, how much would you say is listening and how much is writing?
Like, I'm not sure I completely understand the question. Like in terms of,
like when you're in your life in general,
like when you're arranging, like
internet funny man Rob, can you clarify?
All right, I think I have a way to answer this though.
Okay, yeah.
Like you should like if you're trying to be a writer, an arranger, like composer or arranger or any kind of like person who like if you're doing anything besides being a sideman who just like shows up and plays the parts, like, well, even then, I mean, if you're doing music for a career, you should always be listening. You should always be listening. Like when you're not sitting down and working on something, whether you're like walking your dog or like going somewhere, you should always be giving yourself input.
Yeah, I got it. I think it's 90-10 listening to writing.
Yeah,
really
I think that's probably right. And,
it really is.
And then, I mean, I think it's also really important if you don't naturally have good ears. Like I had, like when I got to college, I had terrible ears. I couldn't pick out anything that I was listening to. You should really work on you should really spend time working on your ears so that when you're listening to something, it's not just like, oh, this sounds nice. You know what's going on, because then you can actually use that. You know, you want to and you don't always necessarily want to be listening to something and actively thinking what's going on and how can I use this. But the stronger your ears are, the more you can listen to something and like just kind of like really soak it in, and it might show up later somewhere in your writing, you know?
Yeah, I think the key to developing your vocabulary as a arranger is thinking, you know, while still enjoying the music, thinking analytically about the DNA of the music. What's going on? What genre is this? What grooves does this genre use? What instrumentations does it use? What articulations does it use? What melodic ideas does it use? What chord changes and harmony does it use?
Yeah.
And absorb it, put it in your bag of tricks so that you can call upon it later when you need to. That's
exactly. I did get a question recently. Somebody, because I started doing instructional content on YouTube, and somebody asked me if I could make a video on how to make good music without knowing any music theory. And I'm the worst. Like, I know some people who are just naturals, right? Like they can't necessarily explain anything that they're writing, and but they just make amazing music. I could never do that. I had to learn a lot I had to train my ears, and I had to just figure out how things work. It's a good thing, and you shouldn't be scared of it. Just go for it, you know? Like, anyway, super appreciate you bringing me on, Charlie.
Man, thank you for hanging out.
And I can't wait for New York.
It's gonna be,
it's gonna be
Jake
amazing.
is playing. If you're coming to Sony Hall, Jake's gonna be playing keyboard in the band all night. We're gonna play Last Surprise, obviously. We're gonna play everything from album 4. It's gonna be great. All right, man. Thanks so much for coming.
Thanks.
Oh, I cut him off. Sorry. If you don't know Jake, if you don't know Button Masher, you really should go check him out because he is so awesome, and the things he does with chiptune music are so badass. Button Masher all over social media and YouTube and Spotify and everything. Really check him out. An amazing musician, truly. I don't know where I got this shirt. I saw that pop up for a half second. I don't really remember, to be honest, but I'm glad you like it. This is fun. You guys having a good time? This is really great. How do you convince the best cats in town to play video game music? You know, it's not necessarily that it's video game music per se. It's that I've spent a long time developing relationships and friendships and artistic relationships with these musicians. And I respect their ability, and they respect my ability to, you know, be friends. If we aren't friends yet, you know, respect their time and their ability and make sure that they get paid fairly, write music that is fun to play, but challenging enough, but not impossible. So it's fun to do, but it's not impossible, you know, it's not physically impossible or physically too demanding. Make sure they have a good time, keep the energy good. It's good people skills, managerial skills, not taking it too seriously. Some band leaders can get really stressed about playing live. No one's going to die. We're not brain surgeons. No one's on the operating table. It's just music. Have a good time, write some good tunes, and practice writing so that you get better at writing for their instruments, so that they know that they feel seen about the things that they can do and they can't do. Get to know your players, what their strong suits are, what they excel at, and feature them when you can. They like to be featured. It's just all about making sure that everyone feels appreciated, has a good time, is fairly compensated, and the music's good. And luckily it is. So yeah, it doesn't take a lot of convincing. It's just, time and friendliness. Have you ever talked to some people who played in the band who have never played video game music and asked how they personally think about the growth of the genre in the music community in general? Yeah, that's a great question. I think a lot of people probably assume that everybody in the 8-Bit Big Band is a gamer, but that's actually not really the case. It's really about half and half. Some people played these games growing up and they know the references and they love to play it because of that, but a big part of them aren't really gamers. They're just musicians, and they go, wow, this music's really great. I had no idea that video game music was so cool, was so fun to play, and was so awesome. I think there's still a stigma of feeling like video game music is secondary, a secondary art form, and that it hasn't really evolved in the way that it has. Video game music now is as high budget as film scores. And now there's a category for it in the Grammys, so it is gaining recognition. But yeah, it's really half and half in the band. It's really half and half. What's the most interesting instrument you have worked into an 8-Bit Big Band song? Oh yeah, it's gotta be. I think I'm gonna go with probably the shakuhachi. For those who may or may not know, Zach Zinger, one of our reed players, plays the shakuhachi, which is a traditional Japanese flute. You play like this, traditionally played by the samurai, and he studied it, and he's very, very good at it. But it's very difficult to play because it only has 6 holes, has no keys. It's a piece of bamboo with some holes in it, basically. And he can somehow play in any key and improvise on it, and it's kind of astounding. You should check him out if you haven't. Zach Zinger, an incredible musician. Sometimes I write stuff specifically for him. He plays with Adam Neely a bunch. He's a great cat. You should check him out. I think that's the most interesting, but I'll keep thinking on it and see if I can remember. What game franchise would you most like to compose for? Wow. Well, I grew up with Mario, so it'd be amazing to do some stuff with Mario, or Zelda. Those are kind of the ones for me. But that feels like a largely, inaccessible fortress for me at the moment. It feels very far away. I would like to compose for whatever game franchise would have me. I haven't actually, even though I do the 8-Bit Big Band, I haven't really done a lot of game composing, to be honest. So anybody out there, if you're making a game, if you're developing a game, get at me. I would love to talk. That's how I'll answer that. Curious to know if you have any tips for aspiring conductors and composers for orchestral music. Okay. Well, there's sort of two different things. And to be quite honest, I don't do a lot in the orchestral classical world. So I actually don't really know how people become conductors. Like, how do you become the conductor of the Phil? I actually don't know. I guess you get a master's and a doctorate in conducting from a university. So I guess maybe that. I don't totally know. But for composers, I actually, again, don't really totally feel qualified to answer this. I'm not sure how the classical concert music world works. I assume, again, it seems to me like the classical music world is very higher education based. So you would have to do that. But I don't totally know. I don't know if I feel qualified to answer. Sorry. I'm sorry. I just don't really know. When not recording the whole orchestra at once, what order do you lay down the tracks for all the instruments? Good question. We've sort of changed that up a little bit as we've grown. The first album was recorded totally in sections in a small studio. And what I did was rhythm section first, so guitar, piano, bass, drums. And then we did the sax section, which was the 5 saxophones. And then we did the 8 brass. It's 3 separate sessions. And on that first album, there's not really any strings. I didn't know that I was going to do strings yet, except for maybe Lonely Rolling Star has strings on it. But we did that as an overdub session with just a quartet, actually, that we overdubbed 3 times in a row. Then as we got bigger for album 2, we got into a bigger studio and we started doing the full big band at once. And I meant to say on album 1, after we recorded all that, then I laid down additional stuff afterward from home. When we move to a bigger studio, we record now the whole big band at once, right? So we do piano, bass, and drums. I hesitated to say guitar because sometimes I pre-record the guitar from home. Sometimes it's me, sometimes it's live. And we do the trumpets, trombones, and saxes all together, which is way better because they can articulate as a unit, they phrase as a unit, they listen to each other, they balance to each other. It takes way less editing and mixing time because they're all such great musicians and they're listening, right? So we do that, and then we do a session right after. We do the first chunk of the day is big band. We take an hour break. The next section of the day is strings. So we usually do 15 or 16 strings, sometimes more if there's a lot of really high violin or divisi where there's split parts. Then we do harp. And if there are French horns, we'll do French horns at that time. If there's woodwinds, we'll do woodwinds at that time. Then we do a separate session for any of the vocalists. If there's vocals, sometimes if there's a featured instrumentalist, we'll do them afterward. And I pre-record all of the stuff, the additional stems, such as sometimes guitar. Usually it's keyboards, extra if there's guitar 2 or 3, extra percussion. Like whenever you hear tambourine on the 8-Bit Big Band album or cowbell, that's me recording it sitting right here in advance along with my MIDI. And then it gets mixed and mastered. So that's what we do to this day. We never record everything, the whole thing all at once. It's just a lot easier this way. I mean, maybe one day, but then you get the bleed from the horns and the strings. You need to have a massive studio, and there aren't a lot of spaces in New York City that still support that. Anyway, why are the music stands so dusty in some of the videos? Dust, baby. I don't know. It's everywhere. It's funny. How do you choose which songs become 1 minute bite? Does it work as the same process for choosing full-length songs? Yeah, the 1 minute bites, I originally conceived of those as being like sort of for social media originally, because at the time Instagram had a 1 minute limit about what videos you could post, as did TikTok. That's not true anymore. But I sort of decided those would be sort of like, when I choose full-length songs for the 8-Bit Big Band, I try to strike a balance between well-known stuff and slightly less well-known stuff, but stuff that has, enough to support arranging-wise, like a bunch of ideas to fit into it. Not that the 1 minute bites don't, but they're either like lesser known, or they're sort of like maybe B-sides from the game, or they're things that maybe I want to try out and then eventually they become full-length arrangements. That's happened to Spring Yard Zone and Gourmet Race. So I just have the ideas to do these quick things as tributes, and then, we'll see. Some people ask if I'm ever going to release the 1 minute bites as an album, and so without getting too much into it, the thing about those songs, some of them are so not well known that it's basically impossible to license those for streaming, so that probably won't happen. But, they're on YouTube. You can listen to them whenever. Hey, Charlie. Hey. Anything that you do differently now after doing stuff for 8-Bit Big Band since you started? So far, not. I don't know. Everything seems to be going pretty well, unless I'm missing something. Let me think. What would I do if there's anything I would do differently? I don't know, Dom. So far, so good. Maybe. I'm not sure. That's a great question. I would like to hear your answer. You should have everybody who you don't know Dom Palambi. He does Dom Palambi's Game Night, another great video game music cover artist. You should check him out. But let me think about that. I don't know. So far, so good. So far, so good. I want to hear your answer at some point too. Anyway, thanks for hanging out. What's your favorite chord progression? Ooh. I don't know. That's a great question. How many chords? What's the maximum amount of chords I can fit into this chord progression? As you might know, and I'm always a fan of a really well reharmonized 2-5-1. You go. So what I did there was D minor 11, tritone sub, D flat 7, flat 13, C6 9 sharp 11. That's a pretty good one. I don't know. I'm also a big fan of this is sort of a lesser used texture that I've used sometimes, is the elusive sharp 15, which would be, can you hear that? You can hear this piano, by the way, right? Oh, you can't hear it. That's too bad. Can't you? We can't hear the piano. But you can hear it in the. What if I do that? So I did a second ago. Now you hear it, right? Nah, maybe you can't hear it. That's all good. Anyway, Check out Sharp 15. Oh, you did hear that. Sorta. Well, if I pause the music, maybe if I go, I'm gonna turn it up. Ready? Okay, here's 251. Right? So that's that. And then Sharp 15 would be C sharp, which, you know, is technically flat 9, but if you have all the other tensions already, it becomes Sharp 15. So you can go. Oh. Yeah, it's choppy sounding. It's not great setup, but it's basically A over D over C. So that's it. Anyway, I put the music back on and we'll keep going. What else we got? Will there be another US tour anytime soon? Yeah, I mean, we're always down to play. It's just a matter of like, you know, coordinating it and figuring it out and finding venues that are interested, which, you know, is tricky to do. So far, we've really not ventured out of the Northeast. You know, we've played in Miami once, and that's about it. I want to get to LA, Austin, you know, Denver, other, you know, the Midwest. I'd love to. So I'll let you know. I would love to do it. How much leeway do you give band members in playing the score? Do they add their own embellishments from time to time? Great question. And the answer is absolutely 100% they do, especially in the rhythm section. If you see the rhythm section charts for the 8-Bit Big Band, they have basically just the bare essentials amount of information that they need to execute the chart successfully. I like to give my players a lot of autonomy while making sure they have the information they need to play correctly, right? And so if there's a bass line that's really specific that is important to play along with somebody else, I'll write that out. Sometimes I'll write out the first 2 bars of a bass line and then put slashes like, this is the vibe that I want. Now you go for it. You do the rest. Same with drums. Write out the drum groove for a bar. Let the drummer do the rest. They're going to come up with something way better than you're going to come up with for the most part, especially the, you know, the cats I've been calling. In the reeds and strings, it's sort of similar. You know, the thing about playing in a big band, being a lead alto player, being a lead trumpet player, lead bone player, setting the way that the band articulates and having thoughts and ideas about how it should be articulated idiomatically in the style is very important. Same with the concertmaster. They do bowings and fingerings and where, you know, there's so many intricacies about how to play an instrument and how they sound. Where on the string you place the bow, how much bow you're using, you know, and on a reed instrument, it's how much air, how much scooping, how much glissing. Are we doing a turn? Are we doing, you know, there's so many little nuances to playing in a section. And I leave that up to the players because they know their instruments a lot better than I will know. Although I do have a lot of input. It's a dialogue. But yeah, I give them a lot of autonomy is the answer. Any recommendations for other jazz big band groups you like a lot? Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Okay, I'm gonna do some lesser known ones that I love because I feel like, you know, everybody knows Count Basie and everyone knows Duke Ellington, Maynard Ferguson, you know, the you know, Thad Jones, Mel Lewis, you know, and Frank Sinatra. You know, I'm gonna try and depart from like the really well known ones, but I'm like a really big fan of these sort of like mid-century studio arrangers from LA that did a lot of the stuff. And you know, probably know Nelson Riddle, who did a lot of Frank Sinatra stuff, and Sammy Nestico and Neil Hefti, you know, and those kind of things. But not a lot. Maybe some people don't know of the arranger Esquivel, and everybody should go check out Esquivel because this guy was the king of just bizarre and off-the-wall orchestrational choices in the context of large ensembles, doing amazing things with panning, all of this. He sort of coined this genre of music in the 60s, you know, called space age bachelor pad music. Totally check it out. It's totally wild, using unconventional instruments. He was a big fan of using the pedal steel in a big band setting, but not as a country instrument, as just for its like for falls and all sorts of cool things. He used an instrument a lot called the boom bap, which is these tuned bongo drums. It's really unbelievable stuff. Growing up, I was a big fan of a big band led by a trumpet player named John DeVersa. You should go check out the John DeVersa big band albums. Those are badass. And everybody knows Gordon Goodwin, but I feel like out of everybody, I feel like I probably sound the most like Gordon Goodwin because I listened to those albums to death when I was in high school. And the way that he is able to be a chameleon of genre and caricature of these various styles is like something that was very important to me and is something I try to emulate. So, you know, definitely that. That's pretty good. Check those out. How are we doing on time? Oh, it's 4:10. Yeah, I think we'll maybe go for another, like 30 or 40 minutes if we got a handful more questions. And, I don't want the stream to become too long. Since you got the Grammy, have you told anyone, do you know who I am? When they like to tell you there's a 20-minute wait to get into a restaurant. It's more like, do you know who I think I am? Do you even know about video game music? No, I have yet to pull that card, and nor have I tried. I have not tried to pull that card. Speaking of improvisation, what is your favorite happy accident that made it into the final mix? Oh, there's definitely a bunch. Let's see if I can pull them to mind. I don't know if I can think of any off the top of my head in this moment, but if you are thinking of one that made you ask that, feel free to put it in the chat and I can confirm if it was in fact a happy accident or not. So, let me know. What's your favorite musical quote you've put in one of your arrangements? There's so many. I don't know. Let me open up my library and I can tell you. Let's see. I'm looking at album 1. Those are all, there's some good ones in there. I mean, the Chocobo theme having Walk Don't Run by who's Walk? The Ventures? Is that? Yeah, the Ventures. Walk Don't Run. That's a surf rock band. What else we got? Gerudo Valley's got Malagueña in it. That's a good one. Luigi's Mansion is Sing Sing Sing. I mean, Rosalie and the Observatory is, Someday My Prince Will Come. Still Alive is obviously I've Got the World on a String. Tetris has got all sorts of stuff in it. My favorite is, it's hard to choose. There's just so many. There's so many shameless quotes. I don't even know how to pick. What's your favorite? Everyone discuss what your favorite of my shameless quotes is, and I'll pick one. Hey, Charlie, what do you find more creative? Writing for musical theater with a limited orchestra or writing for the 8-bit big band with however many players you want? I think you may have just answered that question in the question. So far, and I doubt this will ever be true, I have never, ever gotten to write for an orchestra in a big band or in a musical anywhere close to the size of the 8-bit big band. I seriously doubt I ever will. The biggest one I've ever orchestrated for so far in a musical is Some Like It Hot. That's 18. That's a luxury, sadly, And even with that, and that was supposed to sound like a big mid-century movie musical, it had 2 trumpets and 2 trombones and 4 reeds and 3 strings. Even that, we were sort of like, man, I wish we had a French horn. Or, oh man, I wish we had a 4th string. Or, even that was limiting in some ways. Although we made it work, and it sounds unbelievable. It was a luxury to have that many instruments in a Broadway pit. But sadly, the state of Broadway pits shrinking is that it will always be a little bit of a musical Sudoku where you go, oh, I need that. I already used that there. Oh, I'll do that. Oh, they're switching to flute. Oh, I'll do that. Oh, I can't do that. So it's a little bit of a Sudoku. The 8-bit big band is never a Sudoku. I do whatever I want. I write whatever I want, and it's great. Can you give us an idea of your 10 to 20-year ambitions? Can't wait to see where you go. Oh, man. Yeah, great question. I don't really have anything specifically in mind. Obviously, I would love to score some video games. That'd be really cool. Again, get at me if you have one for me to score. I would love to do it. Just keep working on musicals and maybe do some more film and TV composing would be cool. I don't have anything really specific. I'm pretty happy with the way things are going right now, and just keep recording and making albums and putting out music and having a good time, playing live shows, touring more, things like that. I don't know, 20 years is a long time. Who knows what I'm going to look like in 20 years? Anyway, go on. Favorite 20th century jazz musician and favorite modern jazz musician? My favorite 20th century jazz musician is really hard to pick, but I think I'm going to go with Oscar Peterson. There's just his vocabulary and his facility was so endlessly deep, and his ability to use that to have fun and say something with the solos that he was taking while clearly having a good time. And they're so interesting to listen to, and they're so fun to listen to. They're so filled with joy. His playing is so filled with joy that he's my favorite 20th century jazz musician. Modern? That's hard. That's hard because it's hard to like see the whole scene as a whole while it's happening in real time. I'm gonna let the chat answer. You type in your favorite modern jazz musician, and we can discuss it. Also, who was their favorite? What was their favorite? About quotes? What we got? Yeah, mostly the same thing, I would say. Yeah, okay. Yeah, Brighter Day and Pollyanna. I do love that one. I snuck that one in there. Tchaikovsky and Tetris is good. You know that. Yeah, we should make a doc or a wiki, an 8-bit big band wiki with all of the quotes. That'd be really fun. I sneak a lot of Tower of Power quotes into stuff. That I love Tower of Power. All right. Anyway, that's a great question though. Oh yeah, the Dolphin Shoals on Green Dolphin Street. Dolphin Dance. That's just shameless. Anyway, go on. Kashmir and Super Mario Land. Yeah, that's a good one. During a rehearsal, how do you know when a take is the one? What do you look for other than rhythm and pitch, etc., to rehearse and practice during rehearsals? Great question. Let me preface this by saying we don't rehearse. We really don't. I send the charts out maybe a week ahead of time of the recording sessions, sometimes depending around there, and we show up and we record, right? We don't rehearse. We just show up and we do it. Everyone is so great at reading music and having good instinct that we just do it. We usually do about 3 takes and we are covered. Sometimes if it's a really complex piece, like with Last Surprise or with Meta Knight's Revenge, we'll break it down and do it in sections, and we'll do this section 3 times till we're happy. Move on. But usually we just play the whole thing down. We do it again, do it a 3rd time, and if there's any little things, then we'll just go back and fix those little things. But essentially, by the time we leave the studio, we have already built what will be the final mix. Maybe I do a little bit of editing from home if there's like, oh, I liked this one fill a little bit more. But usually we don't do a lot. We just play it until we're happy, and then we do the next song. It's actually kind of incredible to be surrounded with this many, seriously bad musicians. I mean that in the jazz sense, who can like come in and just crush the stuff, right away. It's a luxury and a pleasure and a privilege, really. Coming from the education space, VGM is often seen as fun/treat music. How can we show the professional education world that VGM is something worth professional attention? Very good question. I think the short answer is we just have to keep playing it and playing it at a high level. And the more artists, and we're in a sort of golden age of that right now. There's so many great video game music artists putting out content at a high level that if we just continue to do so, I think eventually people will catch up and say, oh, maybe there is something to this stuff after all. Again, it's a pretty new art form, and we've just entered maybe a decade or 2 decades of the sort of golden age of video game music when we can really be unbound, by the technical limitations of it. And so it's going to take a bit of time to catch up. Inevitably in education, things lag behind by a decade, so we're going to get there. I think all we can do is just keep doing it and keep doing it at a high level and spreading the word, Yeah, that's true. Nothing gets high school bands more hyped than a video game arrangement. It's very true. That's very true. Very true. Yeah. Anyway, what else we got? Oh, now that you're famous, did you have a favorite fan interaction? I'll get to this one in a second, but I just was reading the chat. Yeah, first of all, I don't know that I'm famous. I don't know if I would say famous, but one thing that is very cool is I have had musicians that play in the 8-bit big band get recognized on the street for playing in the 8-bit big band, outside of other gigs, which is very cool. That's really fun. And I'm trying to think of one, sometimes people recognize me on the street, but it happens. It happens. But it's very cool. And I'm very appreciative of it when people recognize me because it feels so niche. And it still shocks me, honestly, that it happened. It really does. One time, this was a really moving experience, actually. There was a fan from a live show, and we were playing a tune, and this fan came up to me afterward and said, hey, I just heard you playing. It was an outdoor venue. I heard you playing this song, and I bought a ticket and came in. My partner just passed away like a few months ago, and that was their like favorite song to listen to. And so it just sort of felt like very serendipitously you were playing this song, and it feels like it was really like an honor to hear you play it. And like, that was very moving to me. And like, now, thank you so much for doing that. And I was like, wow, it's really special. Thank you for sharing that. And that's so, I'm so sorry. And I'm so glad that we could, like, I don't know, video game music could provide some kind of comfort. It was really cool. It was really special, really special. It's kind of like, yeah, that's why you do it, man. It was very cool. What's your method to arranging in the style of certain arrangers or songs? That's a very, very good question. Again, I think being a the thing about being a professional arranger in making money and a career out of doing it is you have to be a chameleon, right? So what that means is you have to understand what exactly is the vocabulary of any given style and person so that you can imitate it at a moment's notice, right? So you listen to a ton of an arranger's stuff and you go, what devices do they love? What chords do they love? Like what horn lines do they love? What tensions and harmonies do they love to put in their voicings? What do their voicings look like? And, it can be tricky if you have to be really good with your ear if you don't have a score to be like, how is that voiced? Do your best, practice transcribing. But yeah, just thinking idiomatically like another person is a skill that the more you do it, the more you practice. But it's more thinking like, what are the big picture devices that this person employs in their arrangement? What do they do with the trumpets? They do a lot. Like what does Nelson Riddle do a lot that I can cop? Oh, he'll do a lot of like muted trumpet backgrounds, lots of like bass clarinet playing a swinging bass line, with the trombones in bucket mutes playing like staccato stuff. I'm thinking specifically of I've Got You Under My Skin, but he does do a lot of like a lot of bass clarinet, bass lines, so it's just like picking out these devices that these people use and then putting them into your own things and just really listening out for those kinds of things, letting them catch your ear. But yeah, very, very good question. Are you planning to release more 8-bit big band charts to purchase? Good question. The reason why I don't release more charts is I don't have permission, right? And this music is I don't have publishing rights to distribute the sheet music for this stuff, and so I'm very hesitant to release more. I'm very, very hesitant. And again, not being an expert on the way all of that stuff works, I try to just keep my distance. The Five Nights at Freddy's chart still alive. I got permission from the original rights holders to say like you can distribute that stuff. Still alive, I give it away for free. It's fan art. Jonathan Colton I have his blessing to do so. He's a great guy. Moonlight Sonata is in the public domain, which I actually it's not up yet, but I'm going to release Moonlight Sonata shortly for if you want to play it. I don't recommend you try and play that chart with your bands. It's very, very, very hard. It's insanely difficult. That was the hardest thing we've ever recorded by far. But take it and it's for score study. You can look at it. It'll be fun to look at. So Bob on Battlefield, I give away for free. There are a lot of other arrangements out there on the internet. So it's kind of like, it's fan art. But again, I tiptoe around. I'm very careful. I'm very careful. So that's the short answer. Which song for your group do you believe has the most bizarre transformation from original to final version? Like your most, I never thought this song would sound so good in big band form moment. Yeah, I mean, the obvious answer is Still Alive for me, because it's just such a transformation and it really works. And there's something about singing, that I didn't expect, the sort of like passive aggressiveness and the shadiness and a little bit of vitriol in GLaDOS in the lyrics that Jonathan Colton wrote. That just works really well for a Frank Sinatra style singer. It's like a little bit aggressive, but not mean, but just a little bit like, twist the knife a little. It works really well for that style. And I didn't think it would work as well as it works. It really does. Obviously Take You for a Ride is a big transformation, and that was really cool to see into creation. But Still Alive is the big one, and also Pollyanna. I mean, I think Pollyanna might be one of my top 5 favorite things I've ever arranged. It just gives me so much life to listen to that song. And that's a total transformation, right? And yeah, so that's a good one. My mom's favorite arrangement you've done so far is Pollyanna. I was wondering how you got the idea to make it a gospel style song. Yeah, great question. I am white and Jewish, but I love gospel music and I love the music of the Black church. And something about the lyrics of Pollyanna, like really like the positivity, and the hopefulness of it, and just really like inspired me. And it really made me go like, this sounds like this is a Kirk Franklin song. These lyrics are like, this is, or Ty Tribbett or like, this or the Clark sisters, this is a gospel song, And so that was the jumping off point. It all came from the lyrics. It was from the lyrics and the message of the song and the hopefulness and the inspirational, and the sort of and the worshipy vibes of it. And Yeah, so that's where I came from. I did my best. I did my best. I'm not a gospel musician. I'm just an appreciator. I did my best, but I'm glad you enjoyed it. How do you find the singers that you work with on some of your tracks? Will Rowland, Benny Benack, Joel Wagner. Do they DM you or do you reach out to them? They're all my friends. They're my friends. They're friends that I've met along the way, or they do Broadway shows with me, or I've made friends with them in the jazz community. Will is a longtime friend of mine from theater and now a very close friend. Similarly, Benny, we've been playing together for like a decade now. We're close friends. Joel, very close friend of mine. We met doing, I don't even remember what show. I think it was a Joe Iconis show. Maybe it was Broadway Bounty Hunter. It was a long time ago. It was maybe 2014. Yes, Tiffany Mann, we did Be More Chill together, and I asked her, who else? Alan, who sang Pollyanna, we did a show together. We're friends. It's just, you make friends with these supremely talented people, and then they do you the favor of singing on your album, and it's beautiful. It's a great thing. So yeah, that's how that happened. What's your favorite other VGM jazz arranger? Oh, that's a controversial question. I don't know if I feel I love them all, man. I love the consoles. I love Carlos. I love Dom. I love Jake. They're all great. Patrick Bartley's, absolutely crushing. They're so good. Everyone should go check them out. Everyone check them out. There's, I don't know if I can choose. Everyone is so good, and I like that there's a family. Oh, that's the short answer. Any tips or suggestions for musical groups to obtain funding to support studio recording, video production, the same way the 8-Bit Big Band does? What a great question. If somebody would answer that and let me know, I would be very, very happy because I pay for it all. No, the truth is I do well enough in my career as a Broadway musician that I basically use all that money to subsidize my love for large ensemble recording. But I pay for it. It all comes. And now, thankfully, we make enough. The thing is, I don't keep track of the accounting of the band. I don't totally know how much I've spent. It's a lot. I don't want to know. But the YouTube ad revenue is, decent. And if I were to stop recording music right now, probably after a large amount of years, I would break even. But I don't really plan on doing that. And I'm not really counting. So if anybody wants to fund the 8-Bit Big Band, if anybody wants to give me a video game recording gig, fund the 8-Bit Big Band, and book a live concert for the band and pay us fabulously, please let me know. Lin-Manuel Miranda asks you to write a video game musical. Which game translates to the medium of musical the best? That's a great question. I'll get to this one too, as I just happened to catch that one in the chat. I'm going to go with Zelda. The lore is just so deep in Zelda. There's just so much. It's so deep, and there's so many things to choose from. It's got to be Zelda, right? I mean, I would say Mario, but the storylines in Mario are not quite as rich in complexity. Essentially, all boiling down to rescuing the princess linearly, right? For the most part. Zelda, though, is like, wow. I mean, I guess it is technically also about rescuing a princess, but there's so much more going on there. I think, or Final Fantasy is a great answer too. You know what? Final Fantasy is a really, really good answer because all of those games are so deep. Final Fantasy VII would be a great musical, and maybe very timely about not letting corporations destroy the planet. That's all I'll say about that. How is arranging for singers/features different than just arranging for big band? Yeah, I mean, Jake touched on this a little bit, and he had a lot of really good insights into it. You gotta, when you're arranging a feature or you're thinking about, you have like, you're a sketch artist, right? And you're painting a landscape around the subject, right? The singer or the feature, that's your person standing. They're standing in the blank page. You can't erase them. They're going to be there. You can't paint over them. Your job as the illustrator is to color them in, and also the scene around them, right? But don't step on them. Make sure that they have room to be themselves and to express themselves. Give them the opportunity to solo. Let them play the melody. Don't harmonize the melody with them in other places. Make sure that they're in the foreground of the arrangement at all times until they're not. Make sure that there's a real push and give and take between there and being featured. Think of it like a painting, right? a regular big band chart could be a crowd scene. You're painting a bunch of people and they're doing this, but like a feature is like the Mona Lisa, right? It's one person. Make sure they're very featured. Be very specific about the way that you paint that person. Pretty good. There you go. What's your non-8-bit big band work like? Yeah, I mean, like I said, I do a lot of stuff, and 90% of what I do is orchestrations for Broadway shows. As you can maybe see around the room, there are many posters from Broadway shows hanging on the walls. Most of them I have contributed orchestrations to. Some of them I played in the pit. Some of them I was the associate music director or the music director. Some of them I was the music supervisor. But by and large, my job is working on the music for Broadway musicals, orchestrating them, producing them. I do a little bit of TV stuff, a little bit of film scoring stuff, indie films, stuff like that. Some TV shows, very minor stuff you can look up. But yeah, 90% of it's working on Broadway shows. I used to play in a lot of bands, but that sort of fell out of the way while now I do more band leading. But yeah, so that's most of what it is. Wow, your door is awesome. Thank you. I painted it myself. I painted that door. Thank you for noticing. I love that. You got dibs on the Five Nights at Freddy's musical. That's on. Danielle's got dibs. I'll give you dibs. How do you lower the intensity / dynamic after a big moment, i.e. shout, without making it sound too sudden / empty? Great question. Very specific question that I think is really helpful. Like he's saying, the obvious thing to do is to have big shout, big chord, and then it just dips down, and suddenly it's like, oh, the bottom fell out. We're just down to one instrument playing the melody, which is effective. Don't get me wrong, but if you want other options, if you think about like the excitement level of an arrangement, like a linear line, I keep sort of doing this with my finger. It's sort of like you're at 100 with your shout chorus, and you don't want to necessarily go like that unless that's what you're going for. So you have to, like, let's say you got a shout chorus that's going like, and then you have a transition that maybe goes like, you can use some other element, some other parameter like dynamic to help crossfade back to your melody, right? So it could be like taking instruments out one by one, or going maybe a repeated phrase that goes just something that helps like guide the listener into that thinner texture, so it's really like your transition material is equally as important as your melody or your shout or your solo, right? So just play with the parameters to find ways to ease the listener into a new section. That's a specific question, though. I like those kinds of questions. Oh, great. Vienna, Austria. I'd love to go to Vienna. That'd be really cool. Yeah. I remembered my question. The new album is excellent, but obviously it's a lot more vocal heavy than the previous album. Was that intentional from the start, or did that happen organically? That's a good question. This album definitely has more vocal tracks than the rest. And, I didn't intentionally do that. It just kind of happened organically. There is something to a balance between vocal selections and instrumental selections, and the band has gotten more vocal heavy as it's gone along. But I think that's mostly just because I have discovered more video game soundtracks that have lyrics to them. Like I just wasn't as hip to them when I started doing the band, and now I am. So it's kind of like that's an organic thing. So that's a good question. That was AJ Middleton there. Yeah, I can wait, Danielle, for you to catch up with me. There you go. You can throw something else up now. What influenced the transition from a traditional 17-piece big band to band plus strings? Yeah, really good question. I have a specific answer for that, actually. I started the first album is basically pure big band, and that's because I love big band. I wanted to do a big band, right? The 8-bit big band, let's do video game music. It's a big band. And then as I went on, I sort of was feeling very inspired by looking around the video game music space as a whole, and there are a great many orchestras playing video game music, right? You have the Final Fantasy Symphony, the symphonic tour of that. There was Symphony of the Goddesses, Zelda, Assassin's Creed, Sonic. There are a lot of like very cool orchestral video game music concerts that are very they're orchestral, right? They're very purely classical, and they wear tuxes, and they're like, this isn't a classical orchestra, but there wasn't any orchestras doing sort of what the big band studio orchestras were doing in the mid-century, like what Frank Sinatra and Ella Fitzgerald and Dean Martin and the Rat Pack and Sammy Davis Jr. were doing, where it's like they are orchestral, they have woodwinds and strings and harp, but the core of them is still a big band. And there wasn't a lot of that style of video game music, large ensemble going on, if any. And so I thought that would be a really cool direction to take this band in. And just having those strings and those orchestral elements on top of the big band, it just feels so expensive. It's so classy. It's like a Las Vegas, show. It's live at the Sands. And then having your, the front man be the band leader, and we're bantering, we're talking to the band, we're cracking jokes. We got singers, we got soloists, they're coming up, special guests. It's more like a variety show, an orchestral variety show, like they would show the Judy Garland show, or whatever it might be. That sort of orchestra wasn't really existing in the video game music world. So that's what influenced my traditional band to expand into this orchestra. But great question. Charlie, is there a chance for an instrumental version of your lyrical song so one could belt out "Can You Feel the Sunshine in the Car," perhaps, asking for a friend? Yeah, that's a good idea. I released, I don't know if many people even know I did this, but I did release "Still Alive" as a karaoke track. It's on Spotify. You can check it out. But I think I'm going to do that with more tracks. And maybe I'll just make an album, a karaoke album of the 8-Bit Big Band, and just go backwards and like throw them all on there. Once the dust sort of settles on album 4. I'm in the past, I was sort of like, oh, I don't know. Are people going to want that? Is that weird? Is that just sort of like gimmicky? But it's cool. I'll do it. I'm going to do it. It's going to be here at some point. Would you ever consider doing more Undertale / Deltarune music? Yeah, I started for album 4 a Megalovania. I did start one. And I sort of got stuck with it because I just am like, this has to be, it's such a meme. It's so common. Whatever I do with it has to be so different. It has to really be its own thing. And I was playing around with some ideas, and nothing really was like, that's the thing, Again, like none of the things I was playing around with ever felt like really justified by Sans, by the character, by the game. I'm not saying no. I think it'll happen at some point, but I'm only going to do it if it's like, now that's a great idea. But yes, I'm considering it. I haven't played Deltarune, so I don't know about that. That was a Carlos collaboration, and he's played Deltarune, and that song is really great. But I'll have to play the game, so in the future, I'll let you know. After you finish an arrangement, how much work would you say is left for your copyist? Very good question. In my life in general, I don't do any of my own copy work. I have copyists, and they format and print all of the music. They take my Finale file scores, and they clean everything up, make sure it looks amazing. But that's not true of the 8-Bit Big Band in general. I get so excited when I finish an arrangement for the 8-Bit Big Band that, much to my copyists' dismay sometimes, because they probably think that people think they did it, but it's me and it doesn't look as good, But I just quickly format all the parts because I'm so excited about making the demo and like working on the tracks. And so most of the 8-Bit Big Band charts are me doing the copy work in a couple hours after I finish the arrangement. But when we release recently, as we've been releasing the new charts, like Still Alive and Moonlight Sonata, Five Nights at Freddy's, my copyist is now taking them and making them look very beautiful, way more beautiful than I could ever do. And so at some point we're maybe going to go back and, clean up the 8-Bit Big Band books. But that's a huge project, so we'll see how it goes. But, being a copyist is a lot of work. I'm glad you mentioned the copyist because they are underappreciated in the world of orchestras, and the music would look absolutely terrible without them. So shout out to copyists. Do you have a personal favorite from the new album? I'm in love with the hard bop Song of Storms with Pat Bartley shredding. I know, yeah, me too. It's really hard for me to pick a favorite. I mean, it's really hard. I really love them all. That's like asking me to pick my favorite child. I can't do it. They're all so good in such different ways, and everyone sounds so good on them. I can't pick. I'll let you all pick. What's your, chat? Everyone discuss what's your favorite song on the new album. Beneath the Mask, yeah, that's a great one. There's a lot of good ones on there. What's your favorite video game song that you haven't arranged for the band? Somebody I think mentioned this in the chat earlier, but I love the Katamari Damacy soundtrack, and I started doing the main theme and never really finished it. I'm like, let me look in my to-do folder here. Someone mentioned earlier, why don't you do any Mega Man music? I have a couple of Mega Man X tunes that I've been wanting to do for a while. Those are in my to-dos. Let's see, in progress. There's some more stuff from Persona. I have one that I'm currently working on. It's the Wii Sports theme. Yeah, that's gonna be fun. I haven't done the Legend of Zelda main theme, and similarly to Megalovania, I'm like, I have to think of something really original to do with it because it's so common. So, stuff like that. Gusty Garden Galaxy is great. I want to do more Galaxy stuff. Galaxy's awesome. So, yeah. Hi, Charlie. How did you come up with the idea for the synthy bass line in Beneath the Mask? So simple, but adds a lot. The synthy line. Are you talking about the, like, maybe you can respond in the chat. I'll give you a second because I think there's a little bit of a delay. Are you talking about the thing that goes like, boop, 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 doo, doo? Is that the thing you're talking about? Because if that is the thing you're talking about, that is completely ripped off from A Long Walk by Jill Scott. So there you go. The song really, like, I wanted to bring like the vibe of Jill Scott to this song that was clearly already heading in the neo soul direction, and I thought that would really push it over the edge. So I borrowed that from Jill Scott. If that's what you're talking about, I feel like it probably is, but I can't be too sure because there's a delay in the chat as I'm looking at it. So I hope that's right. Let me know if it's not. On this question, how do you choose which instrument to do a solo for? I try to keep it really balanced. I mean, I definitely, much to the trombone player's dismay, like, don't write enough trombone solos in the 8-bit big band, as they'll all tell you. I write a lot of sax solos. I don't know why. I guess I just bias towards sax solos. And I do a lot of piano and guitar solos. I try to keep it balanced, I do some trumpet solos. Now there's some trombone solos on the new album, finally. So it's just really about like what timbre calls out. Song of Storms, for example, is so obviously like a John Coltrane thing that it had to be saxophone. So it's just about what calls out to me in the moment when I'm writing it. Rip trombone players. They'll get their day. I see an animal behind you. Oh, that's my dog. That's Daisy. She's a good dog. She's been sleeping this whole time. Very nice of her. Good doggy. Oh. You awake? Good dog. What's one style of music that is so out of your element, but you really want to explore? Ooh. You know what I really love is like Balkan music and like the music of that region of the world, the Eastern European stuff that's in like 11 and 13, and it uses like very non-Western scales and intonation, and the grooves and the way that they write for those brass instruments is so like powerful. They have their own style of brass band, and the phrasing and the articulation is really cool. And also like Arabic classical music I really want to get more into. I like absolutely love, and it's so like I like took one oud lesson once from a friend, and I was trying to play these scales that had the quarter tones in them, and I just couldn't get them. And I want to listen to more, Arabic classical and get that style. And I love the qanun, is a very beautiful instrument. Oud is cool, so yeah, that's one style. There's two styles really. Will you ever do a live arranging session? No. Anyway, will you ever do a live arranging session? I've actually, in like leading up to doing this live stream, like in 30 minutes before I started doing it, I was sort of like, this is actually really fun. I should do like live arranging sessions. Maybe I could like put a poll out and you could just tell me as a group what song you want me to arrange. And it could be like a speed run, like an arranging speed run, any percent speed run, from beginning to demo. And you all just sit with me and maybe we do it. And then you could see inside how I do it. I could live stream, screen share. That'd be cool. Maybe I'll do that. That's a good question. We got about 15 minutes left, so I'll probably take a few more questions. Have you heard of Balkan wartime synth pop? No, but I guess I'm going to find out right after this live stream. Balkan wartime synth pop. That's sick. Okay, I'll check that out. Any plans for giving a masterclass? Yeah, I mean, I might do more. That's interesting. I could do a live stream where I like look at other people's arrangements and we could talk about them. That'd be cool. That's a cool thing. That's a good idea too. These are all good ideas. Keep all these in mind after this live stream, which has been really fun. I appreciate you all coming and hanging out with me. You're asking really great questions. Let's got time for a couple more, and I'll wrap it up. Hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving. If you're in the United States. Are there any games you like the music from, but don't want to arrange the music from because of the content of the game? Maybe like the content maybe being like that it's not appropriate. I don't know, actually. That's a really good question. I can tell you one answer to this that might be disappointing to some people, but it's not about the content of the game at all. But it's music that I get asked to arrange a lot, and I just feel like I'm probably not going to do it. And that is Cuphead. And the reason why, that's a great game. I love that game, and I love that soundtrack. It's so good, but it's already big band. It's already what we do. It's already in a style. It's in this traditional arranging style. It's so perfect. And people always ask me, why aren't you doing any Cuphead music? I don't feel like I have anything to add. It would just be a cover band at that point, and that is not really what we're about. Reimagining things. That music is so perfect as is, and we're probably not going to do any Cuphead. So, sorry guys. Do you play or try to play all the games you arrange for? If so, what do you think it adds to the arrangement of everything? I do. I try to have some experience with the games that I arrange for. I don't always, but 90% of the time I do, and it definitely adds a lot. For example, Mabe Village, right? That's from Link's Awakening, right? And let's listen to it. And if you can hear, that that obviously is not Mabe Village. That's the Ballad of the Windfish, and that's in the game. You play that, and it has a very special purpose in the game, which I would not have known if I didn't play the game. So that dramaturgically, I can take that and add it into the arrangement and use it as an arranging feature, to be like this. That's the perfect sort of like way into the world. Like if, a lot of the times when I'm arranging, I sort of think of what it would look like if it were a film. And it's sort of like, if we were like descending onto Mabe Village, it would be like in the clouds, and maybe you'd see the egg, and it's playing the Ballad of the Windfish. And then it's maybe like you're in Mabe Village and it's playing the theme. So, it takes experience in the games, to understand what the purpose of these themes are, and you can weave them in and make reference to them. It's the same with orchestrating a Broadway show. It's like you have to understand the characters and where they're coming from to know what instruments to choose, why, arranging. It's very important. So I do try to play all the games I arrange for, but not all of them. Like, is there any I haven't played? Actually, I'm kind of having a hard time. I've never played DuckTales. Sorry. Maybe I will one day. The original DuckTales that the moon theme is from. I haven't played that, but I'll get around to it. Anything else? Oh, yeah. I haven't played Fire Emblem Fates. I'll get around to that too. I'm not good enough at those kinds of games. They take too much brain power. I'm not good enough. They're too much like chess. They're fun, but I always fail at them. Anyway, good question though. Oh, and Deltarune too. I haven't played Deltarune. That's true. Would you ever do a gaming stream? Should I become a Twitch streamer? No, I don't know. What would I stream? What game would I stream? Oh, I have played Marvel vs. Capcom 2 once, but I can't say that I'm a very good fighting game person. Yeah. Oh yeah, same with Requiem of Spirit in Gerudo Valley is another perfect example, also from Zelda, of me have to have experience with the games to play them. Yeah. Stream Deltarune. Yeah, okay, maybe I'll do that. Yeah. What musical pit has been the most fun to play in? Probably Be More Chill, because it was all my friends and I did the charts and it was super fun. That was a really fun one, but they're all fun. They're all fun in their own way. Favorite game of the year? What are the choices? What's nominated for game of the year? What we got? Alan Wake 2, Super Mario Bros. Wonder, Tears of the Kingdom, Baldur's Gate 3, Resident Evil 4, Spider-Man 2. Ooh, that's a tough choice. I don't know. Tears of the Kingdom was pretty good. Mario Bros. Wonder is pretty fun. Baldur's Gate 3 I did play, although I started playing it, but it's like, again, it's so complicated and I have so little, like, that's a deep role-playing game that I am not smart enough to play. So, but it is amazing. I don't know. That's a tough choice. We'll have to let the awards decide, won't we? Favorite genre of video game? If I had to guess, most forms of RPG. I don't know. Again, like RPGs can get a little grindy for me sometimes, actually, depending on the RPG. But that being said, I like when they're like not super hardcore JRPG where you have to just grind. Like I've started Dragon Quests many times and never finished them because they're a little bit too grindy. But I like Persona a lot, which is like the perfect balance of action and RPG leveling. Or I like when other games have RPG elements. Like I really love Borderlands. I'm like a junkie for Borderlands games. And I really love open world survival crafting games. I'm like addicted to those. I really love Satisfactory. If anybody knows that game, I'm obsessed with Satisfactory. Just played Raft. Raft is a great game. I love open world craft survival games. And platformers. I love a platformer. Those are like my home base is platformers, especially of the 2D variety. I love all the indie platformers. I love Shovel Knight. So I'm really good at those things that take, Twitch, not too much thinking, just acting. Those are the kinds of games I really like. How much time do you have to play games now? Do you carve out time intentionally? I noticed a lot of 8-bit Big Man musics are from classics. Are you able to keep up with modern releases? Yeah, I play a lot of video games now, honestly. Especially this fall, I've had a lot of downtime to play games. So I do try and keep up with modern games as they're coming out. I think the reason that the 8-bit Big Man skews classic is because I am a millennial and the games that I grew up with, I have played to death. And so their music of them is so like deeply ingrained in my head that that's just what comes out naturally. But again, like, I try to keep up and do some more modern stuff. That's why like Persona made its way and I just played that recently. I really love indie games. I've been playing a lot of indie games. But yeah, there's a lot of great tropes. Yeah, we did Super Bell Hill. I try to be a little bit more modern with it. But there's just so much stuff to catch up on in the classic canon of video game music. And those tunes have become like standards, and that's what makes them a little bit more like we're arranging them because they're standards, because we're a jazz band and that's what we do. So, I hope that answers your question. Outside of the instrumentation / mix, do you hear a big difference between the writing in your first album and the most recent one? Oh my God. Absolutely. The first album sounds really great. But from a engineering perspective, we did it in sections and in a smaller room and, it sounds really good, but it just sounds a little bit more sort of like, small, it just sounds like, it doesn't have like the width and the breadth of recording the ensemble together in a large space. And you get the sound of the room, the sound of the room contributes so much to the vibe. And so we've upgraded to that in a big way. As for my writing and, our engineer, John Kilgore, who does everything we do, records and mixes everything we do, absolutely like ascends in that bigger space. The sound he's able to get is just so rich, and it gets richer every time because the players play together more and we play together as a unit more and we get tighter and the sound gets better and it's just unbelievable. My writing has also improved a lot. I've gotten a little bit, the thing that I've noticed when I go back and listen to those old albums versus now is my writing has gotten more efficient and it sounds more exciting even though I'm writing less notes. That's because I'm more aware of the contrasts of what I'm playing, where in the instrument those notes are sitting, what those instrument jobs are, when they're effective, when they should not be playing. And remembering that, even 4 people playing at the same time can make a lot of sound. So you don't have to have everybody blowing all the time. The drum solo is equally as bombastic as a hooty shout chorus with 33 people. So just knowing like what to put when and where and being efficient about your choices is a thing that only comes with time and practice. Maybe time for let's do 2 more. How much of a this is a really good question. How much of a composer should you be if you want to be an arranger? Very good question. I think to be a good arranger, you have to also consider yourself to be somewhat of a composer. Because where is the line between arranging and composing? That line, I guess, is I didn't write the melody. If you write everything else, all the chords, all the instruments, everything else, and even if you make up new themes, like a lot of times in 8-bit Big Band charts, like Tifa's theme, for example, Tifa's theme is ba-da-da-da, ba-da-da-da, like it has an A and a B theme. But then I wanted there to be a bridge, right? So then I wrote like I'm tired of this melody. I've played it. I need a third thing. I need a B section. That's composing, but it's not really composing because I didn't write Tifa's theme. It's arranging. So you have to really kind of be both. And it just, you can't help it. If you are a really great arranger, you are a composer. You can't really help it. But good question though. Thoughts on, I'm just reading the chat here. Charlie, do you have any advice for young aspiring jazz musicians who are looking to improve but aren't sure how? Play. Jazz is a language, and the more you speak it, the better you get, and the more fluent you get. Play as much as you possibly can. That's sort of it. Play it with whoever you can, whenever you can, and do it as much as possible. Yeah. Your arrangements are hella based. We love them. Based. I love you guys too. On that question, are there old arrangements that you would like to change now? Yeah, sometimes I go back and I listen to old arrangements and I'm sort of like, oh, that's, it sounds really exciting, but it was a little bit, it's a little bit difficult to play, or it's a little bit too much. Or, especially when I listen to my old Broadway big band ones from my early 20s, I'm sort of like, these are exciting to listen to, but God, are they really brutal to play live. And what I'm gaining from writing that high and long on the trumpet, it's just not worth the struggle, and it's just like, it's okay. It's not even effective because I write so much, So yeah, I listen to my old stuff and I go, that was good, but it's a lot, and again, efficiency is the thing you get over time. So yes, and that's inevitable with any artist. They look back at their old stuff and they go, oh God, what was I thinking? That being said, I did write that Moonlight Sonata chart is completely tasteless. So I'm a hypocrite. You should do another classical song sometime. Yeah, I'm thinking about maybe just doing it like a classical EP for fun. It's fun. Why not? Let's do one more. Final question. Pick the most insightful one you could possibly pick, Danielle, and we'll close this baby out. Pictures at an exhibition would be good. Yeah. Thoughts on arrangements that are more faithful than different to its original. They're all valid. They're all valid. They're all valid. I'm letting you pick the final question. I'm just reading the chat. This is a good way to end. Okay. How do you make your connections with people? I've noticed many of the songs on the new album had featured people. This is the most important part of music for me. Obviously music is about making music, but more importantly, it's about playing together, right? Making music is about collaboration. Making music is about making friends and meeting artists and collaborating with them in real time and creating something that is better than the sum of its parts, right? So music is all about connecting with people. It's all about making friends who do things that you don't do and do them better than you do. It's about making sure you're surrounded by people that really inspire you, that are awe-inspiring in their ability and their artistic nature, and are fun to be around and you can connect with on a human level. Because if you can do that, the art gets better, right? And the more you hang out, and the more you connect with them, the more you play, the more you learn about them as musicians and artists, the better your music is going to be, and the better they're going to be at interpreting your music. So it's all about connecting with people and making friends, and then calling upon those friends' skill sets when the time is right. So you can really feature their abilities, and that's where these features come from. They're born out of a place of connection, of organic, meeting and collaborating of the people that are in my life. A lot of people say, do you have auditions for the 8-Bit Big Band? We don't really. I call people who I are close with and can play the crap out of their instrument and are good people. And that is really what it boils down to. And the second part of it is sometimes more important than the first part. I'll often call people for gigs that are, not the best at whatever. They don't have to be the best person in the world at the saxophone or at the drums or at the guitar. Not that my musicians are world class, but I'm saying in general, I would choose somebody who is a better hang over the best musician in the whole world, as long as they are very good at their instrument. And in New York, everybody is very good at their instrument. So it's really about, who are they? We have to connect with them. So that seems like a good place to leave off. I really, really appreciate you all hanging out with me. This has been super, super fun. I'm sorry I didn't get to all the questions in the chat, but you know that you can, if you have any further questions, feel free to come hang out on our Discord server, ask them. I'm very active on there. We like to hang out and talk about games and jazz and musical theater and all sorts of stuff. And you can ask those questions. And, you know, I'm very, very proud of album 4. It's incredible. It sounds unbelievable. The response has been so awesome from you all so far. I'm glad everybody is listening and appreciating all the stuff we've been doing over the years. It really makes it all worth it. And yeah, it's been a fantastic journey. I'll probably do more of these live streams, and maybe I'll do more educational ones where we like arrange together or work together. That'd be very cool. And yeah, you know, if you're around in any of the cities we're doing live shows, please come say hi. You know, we're all very friendly. We like to hang out. But most importantly, thank you all so much for listening. You know, it's really been a pleasure to make this music, and it's been a pleasure that you are enjoying it. So thank you again. Long live video game music. Thank you for hanging out. And yeah, hopefully see you next time. See you at the show. I read all the comments, you know, so I'm around. And yeah, so this is your band leader, Charlie, signing off. Thank you so much for hanging out. And, you know, I'll see you next time.